Hello everyone, this is Payal Agarwal and today we will be discussing about one of the major amendments under LODR Second Amendment Regulations 2023 which pertains to BRSR Core. One may face various questions as to what is BRSR Core, from when will it be applicable, to whom will it be applicable and so on. And hence, before we discuss BRSR Core, it is important to understand to whom does BRSR applies to presently. BRSR, as we all know, is a sustainability reporting requirement which is currently applicable to top 1000 listed entities on the basis of market capitalization as on 31st March 2020, as on 31st March of the previous financial year. Correct? Now, BRSR Core brings with itself a set of quantifiable and outcome oriented key performance indicators. Quantifiable and these quantifiable and outcome oriented key performance indicators are linked to certain ESG attributes. For example, disclosure of scope 1 and scope 2 GHG emissions is linked to the GHG footprint of the listed entity. Similarly, the spending that an entity makes towards the well-being of its employees demonstrates its commitment towards the well-being of the employees. There are other attributes which relates to promoting gender diversity, inclusive development, and so on. Now, before we understand what the amendments and what the actionables are, please note that we will be discussing these in four major heads, which is first of all, reporting as per revised BRSR format. Second is gaining a reasonable assurance on the BRSR code. Third is similar ESG disclosures, that is disclosures on BRSR code for value chain partners. And fourth is the limited assurance of disclosures made for value chain partners. Okay. Now, first we discussed about the reporting as per revised BRSR format. So please understand the existing format of BRSR has undergone a change to include the BRSR core components, and BRSR core as such is only a subset of the existing BRSR format. So with the amendments, quantifiable disclosures have been included to ensure verification and measurement. Similarly, certain disclosures have been moved from leadership indicators to essential indicators. As we all are aware, leadership indicators are basically disclosures that are voluntary in nature, and a listed entity which is otherwise required to report on BRSR may or may not report the leadership indicators. But when it comes to essential indicators are those disclosures that a listed entity which is mandatorily required to comply with BRSR is required to report on. Okay. Apart from these, certain disclosures of intensity ratios are now based on revenue adjusted for purchasing power parity. This has been done to ensure global comparison with sustainability reports of other companies which are operating in countries around the world. So this is what the revised BRSR format is. Now, as we discuss on reasonable assurance on BRSR core, please understand that this assurance is limited to BRSR core items and not to the entire BRSR report. So what are the BRSR core items? Let us see. See, this is the particular question of the specific principle to which the disclosure and the attributes relate. These disclosures comprise the BRSR core items. For example, Principle 6 pertains to disclosures with respect to conservation of environment. The disclosures are details of GHG emissions, which is linked to the attribute of GHG footprint. Similarly, water withdrawal with water footprint, energy consumption with energy footprint. There are disclosures on the social front as well. For example, spending on measures towards well-being of employees and safety-related incidents, which is directly linked with the attribute of enhancing employee well-being and safety. Disclosures on complaints on POSH and wages paid to females, enabling gender diversity in business. Similar disclosures are for inclusive development, fairness in engaging with customers and suppliers, and the openness of business towards small business activities. Correct? So these are BRSR core items, and these are the items on which reasonable assurance is required. Reasonable assurance is required on a gliding path approach. That is, it is applicable to top 150 listed entities only from financial year 23-24, which is gradually extended to top 250 listed entities from financial year 24-25, top 500 listed entities from financial year 25-26, and thereafter to top 1000 listed entities from financial year 26-27. Moving on, the disclosures on BRSR Core are also required for the value chain partners of a listed entity. Here again, please note that the existing format of BRSR also contains disclosures for the ESG attributes of the value chain partners. However, these disclosures are a part of leadership indicators and therefore not mandatory for a company to report. But from financial year 24-25, for the top 250 listed entities on the basis of market capitalization, the ESG disclosures of BRSR Core of the value chain partners will be required to be done on a comply or explain basis. And from the next financial year, these disclosures are also required to be assured of by an independent third party. But here, the concept of limited assurance as against reasonable assurance is introduced, since it might not be possible to have complete details with respect to value chain partners so as to provide a reasonable assurance by the assurance provider. We have been using this term value chain every now and often. So let us first understand what value chain means. So in the context of BRSR, value chain has been defined to mean the top upstream and downstream partners of listed entity, cumulatively comprising 75% of its purchases or sales by value, respectively. So the term respectively requires us to differentiate amongst the upstream partners and the downstream partners. Let us understand this one by one. Upstream partners would generally mean the suppliers providing raw materials to the listed entity. So what the company is required to do now is to prepare a list of its suppliers on the basis of the value of purchases made from each of the suppliers on a descending order of value, and thereafter the top 75% will comprise the value chain for the purpose of BRSR disclosures. Similar approach has to be taken when it comes to the downstream partners of listed entity, which would generally mean the customers or distributors with whom the listed entity has a direct nexus to. Okay. Now, as we mentioned about the reasonable assurance and the limited assurance, it is also important to understand who can act as an assurance provider. Who can be providing an assurance? Can it be an employee of my own company? Can it be someone who is from my group company? Or is it required that such person is an independent third party verifier? So yes, the person needs to be an independent third party verifier. Well, SEBI does not prescribe any qualifications or eligibility for a person to act as a reasonable assurance or limited assurance provider, and the same is left to the discretion of the listed entities to ensure that the person who has been appointed as an assurance provider has the necessary expertise. SEBI has, however, specified that there should be no conflict of interest. Now, there can be various ways conflict of interest may arise between an assurance provider and a listed entity. And SEBI has specified one of those various ways wherein it has been clearly stated that there has to be a differentiation between the audit or assurance services and the non-audit or non-assurance services, including sale of products. So the assurance provider or any of its associates cannot sell its products or provide any non-audit or non-assurance related services, including by way of consulting services to the listed entity as well as to its group entities. That will be a disqualification to act as an assurance provider for a listed entity. The concept of sustainability reporting in India is constantly developing, with BRR in the past and thereafter BRSR, and coming to present day, the concept of BRSR Core Things are gradually emerging and we are gradually learning. But what would be interesting is to see as to whether those entities for which BRSR or BRSR Core is not mandatory as on date, will they also take voluntary initiatives so as to comply with this reporting? Thank you for watching. We have our other resources on LODR Second Amendment regulations. The link is in the description box below. Thank you.